Hi, everyone. I'm Jeanette Mulvey, the editor-in-chief of Co. by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We're excited to welcome you to today's Co Strategy Studio, focusing on optimizing hybrid work. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our supporting sponsors, Dell, FedEx, Iron Mountain, and Oracle NetSuite. We appreciate your partnership in this series. Today's event is focused on strategies, best practices, and practical solutions for a successful hybrid work environment. Now, we'll hear techniques, adaptable policies, and real life experiences that enable seamless integration and empowerment of a remote and in person workforce. Our guest today is a small business owner who has succeeded in developing tactics to master the hybrid work environment with her business. Erin Pash is the CEO and founder of Ellie Mental Health, which is based in St. Paul, Minnesota. Erin's work experience in local government and nonprofits led her to found her business to bring more creativity and fill gaps in the mental health community. In the last 8 years, Ellie has grown to 25 locations throughout Minnesota and more than 550 locations in 40 states. Welcome, Erin.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, thank you. Actually, you have such a great story. So, before we talk about the hybrid workforce, I want everyone to understand what it is that your business, which is called Ellie, does, because that's really important to the story. So, just tell us a little bit about Ellie and how it's different than a traditional therapy practice.
Yeah, so I started Ellie here in Minnesota as a licensed marriage and family therapist. I still hold my state license today. And it was with this idea that we wanted to really make some common sense decisions in healthcare while creating a world class employment experience and having just a really punchy brand that helped destigmatize mental health care for people. We started this business about 8 years ago. And since then have just kind of grown in various directions organically by with other like-minded partners in the community who wanted to also grow mental health in a unique way. And we did so successfully in Minnesota that we had decided we wanted to expand with other like-minded partners across the country. And we selected to do that via the franchise model. So we are opening over 550 clinics across the United States. We have 130 of them open today. And we are still standing behind, our core values of bringing humor and creativity and compassion to mental health to make sure that clients feel like they can access care in an environment that suits them.
So, for someone who really doesn't know exactly what that means, what you're doing essentially is you're franchising the model and you're bringing together a business partner, so someone to run the business side of the company, and with a practitioner, and they partner together in most cases. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So what we found was a little bit broken in the model is that there weren't enough clinicians who had the opportunity to maybe create their own practice in a way that felt like it had the right type of business support. And so our opportunity in this market was, what if we could partner a great business person with somebody who is a great mental health professional and leverage that partnership to create excellent, high quality outpatient mental health services, which are like individual counseling for people. If you have anxiety or depression, we work with kids, we work with couples and kind of across the spectrum on an outpatient basis.
Okay, great. So, bringing this around to our topic, which is a hybrid workforce, you have that in many ways. So, you have some therapists who, well, first of all, you have franchisees, so they're spread out all over. So, you need to communicate with them, and then you have therapists who are both in person and remote, and then some who do both. So, can you talk about just how hybrid work has really not only played into your business plan, but actually why it's allowed your business to kind of exist and be successful?
Yeah, absolutely. So mental health has been a challenging topic for a long time, right? It's been very stigmatized and people have had a hard time asking for help. But prior to the pandemic, it was almost universally known that when you went to go see somebody for mental health, it was in person. You would show up at a clinic, much like a doctor's office, and you would kind of, work through some of your needs. The pandemic shifted our business, much like other medical practices, completely online. And so we took our 200 some employees at the time, got them all technology that they could use from home. And we operated in a complete remote capacity for about a year during COVID. And so what's happened since then is something really kind of unique and cool. And what we've learned in this industry is that being able to do telehealth or hybrid work in mental health has allowed people to have a great option for when life gets too busy or throws curveballs at you to still get access to treatment. And so we today, I mean, it has completely shifted our model, and we today empower our employees to have hybrid schedules. Some folks are totally and completely remote, while others come into the office. And what it does is it enables not only our employees to have a great work-life balance, where otherwise they couldn't have that before because they were in clinic all day, but it also allows our clients to have better access to care, so that when maybe you get called because your kid is sick, you don't have to cancel your mental health appointment. You can just shift it to being virtual.
So let's talk a little bit about, I guess I want to understand the difference between hybrid and remote work. So can you explain, at least in your business, what is the difference? And then kind of what are the pros and cons of each one?
Absolutely. So for us, hybrid means that you come into the office a few days a week, and then a couple days a week you do work from home. And we do this for both our clinicians, which is a big part of our business, as well as our corporate office, which is a couple hundred employees as well. And the pandemic has given us a little bit of play, right? I don't think we'd be talking about this pre-pandemic necessarily, or it wasn't as popular. But that's what hybrid is for us. And we require all of our folks who are here in Minnesota, who are considered hybrid, to come into the office at least one day a week. At our corporate office, we really try and have people come in 3 days a week, but we also make sure that we tailor it to individual needs of the folks that we hire. Complete remote work is people who don't work anywhere near one of our facilities or our clinics. So we have folks in our call center who are in Kansas or Ohio or Florida. Our billing team is kind of centered in Colorado. And so those are fully remote employees who are never coming into the office.
So do you have a thought about what sort of the pros and cons of each? Because I think a lot of our audience will have employees of both types. So I'd love to talk about both.
Yeah, so well, let's talk about the hybrid work experience first. One of the things that makes Ellie unique and a lot of companies unique are the people, right? And so it kind of feels pretty obvious to say, hey, if we want to get all the benefits of these incredible people and really nurture the culture, it feels important to be spending time with them, and maybe not just through a video monitor. And so the biggest pro of hybrid is that people get that flexibility that they're craving, to be able to not fight traffic in the morning a couple days a week, to be able to, manage even just a couple loads of laundry while they're in and out of meetings throughout the day and work at home, but they still get to feel really grounded and connected to the company culture. And that feels super duper important, especially in my industry that's about people and feelings, to be able to nurture those in-person connections. The biggest con, I would say, of the hybrid work experience is that we miss out on some of the nuances in the day-to-day, because maybe not everyone's in the office at the same time, or it can be a little bit cumbersome when you have two people on a screen for a meeting and the rest are in person. And just some of that casual interaction that used to exist in the office place is kind of lost, and people feel maybe left out of a impromptu meeting that happened in person where folks were maybe not in the office that day. It can also be challenging to just manage schedules, right? And so trying to make sure that we have a lot of administrative support and strategic planning, and making sure that we're being thoughtful to make sure all the right people are a part of meetings and can show up in person if we need them to be. And that is definitely a challenge that we work through almost every single day. When it comes to the remote experience, I think what the biggest pro of that is that we get to hire people from all backgrounds and all places, right? So we get this huge, diverse applicant pool for any opportunity that we're offering, because instead of being geographically like landlocked to our search, we can look everywhere. And that's great because we found some really, really talented people across the country who might not be central to Minnesota. The drawback is a little bit of the opposite of the hybrid experience, which is we don't get a chance to nurture our culture in person with those people on a routine cadence, right? Sometimes we might not see our remote folks, maybe even just once a year if we can get the schedules to align on a national conference or a company meeting. And so it can really be isolating for those folks. A lot of times people feel like they're missing out. And so we're constantly trying to do things to make sure that our remote and hybrid workers who are a little bit further removed from a physical location are still feeling like they can access each other. Sometimes it's sponsoring, the executive team sponsoring events for specific teams to go out, or making sure that we pay for the remote employees to come in for big meetings, and just making sure that we can try and get them in person when the time and scheduling allows. But, I think if there's anything I've learned is that people really, really crave flexibility. And one of our values is that we make sure that people are in an opportunity that works for them. And so we make sure that we create policies that are broad, while also making sure we're working with folks on an individual level and make sure that it's more than just a job, but really it's a vocation, and that their needs are being met for themselves and their families.
Let's talk a little bit more about that challenge of the disconnection that maybe remote employees might feel. How do you address that? Again, you said your business is one of feelings and being able to communicate. So how do you address that disconnection?
Yeah. So the same way that I would say if we were talking about mental health, the first thing is validation. Let people know that it does kind of suck to be removed. It is kind of crappy to be remote. Even though they're passionate about the company and about the values and the mission, it can still just sometimes feel isolating. I would also say that we are really, really, really constantly trying to find ways to connect with folks, but we don't always get a chance to do that, right? Some people might feel comfortable in a totally remote position for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, and then really decide that some aspect of their life that is missing is that in-person connection. And in that process, sometimes what we can see, and I'm sure a lot of other business owners can see this, is when people start to have dissatisfaction, even if it's not in the work that they're doing, but in just the surrounding or whatever nuance it is about their job, it can start to erode culture. Right. And so when we are talking with our employees, we are validating that not only is that experience hard, but we're also evaluating, is this the right position for them like it was when they started? And making sure that we're supporting our employees, that if remote work is no longer serving them or providing that balance that they want, really making sure we're having honest conversations about their jobs and what their needs are. And sometimes that can be in creating a mutual agreement to help support them to find employment other places.
Okay. So you said something that made me think about the idea that it's just not a one size fits all. Like we need workplace policies so that everyone knows what the rules are and the boundaries are, but also you need flexibility. So how do you balance the two of having kind of general workplace policies, but then kind of customizing them as you need to?
Yeah, I think it's just really, again, another thing I pull from being a clinician for so many years is that you could have the same person sit in front of you with very similar issues, but the way they react and respond could be totally different. One of our core values is creativity. So our goal is to treat each employee in front of us with an opportunity to support them through creativity. And so even though we might say our generalized rule is that you should be in the office 3 days a week, we will sit down and create action plans with each of our employees for if that doesn't feel possible for them. How can we still nurture and make sure that they're a part of the culture? How can we make sure they have access to the same opportunities and maybe a more remote or hybrid environment? How can we support them to problem solve how to make it happen in the future, right? And just make sure that we're having really candid and open and honest conversations with each of our staff so they know where they're at, they know where we're at. One of the things I say all the time is clear is kind. So making sure that we're on the same page and that we're both understanding what the needs of the individual are as well as the needs of the business, and making sure that we're balancing that in a healthy way.
You have teams across many locations. And we talked a little bit before about company culture, but how do you nurture company culture across all those locations? And then each franchise is owned by a different person. So there's that piece of it too. They're not just your employees, but it's also your franchises. So just like, what are some like three kind of key things that you find are effective methods for championing company culture?
Yeah, I think one thing I learned a long time ago when this company stopped being so small, and just where the culture was driven by me as the founder and owner, was that I did some research and I learned that groups of 150 people or larger, you can no longer kind of steer that ship exactly the way you want, because there's just certain aspects and elements that are out of your control. So instead of fighting that as a business, we leaned in, and one of the things that we did is we supported and really nurtured our leaders to be the cultivators of their location and their site, and make sure that they're the ones who are making it a priority to create and shift the culture that they want. A good example of that is some of our clinics might say, hey, we would love a budget to go and have a fun happy hour, or to have a group event. And the other might be like, well, we'd really just rather have a couple more bucks in our paycheck. But that can be driven by the culture of the clinic, right? So it's not this one size fits all. You have to do it this way. You have to have these same opportunities. And so we make sure that it's not that it's equitable by based off of the feedback that our leaders are getting from the people that they lead. And so I would say the single most important thing is making sure you have strong leaders who understand Ellie culture or your business culture, and then making sure that you support them to adapt it to what the needs are of the people that they are managing. And that has been extremely successful for us. Whereas in the past, when we were kind of, started feeling some of that resistance and starting to feel like maybe some of the cultural aspects weren't being understood or met, we were starting to see people who were less happy in their jobs or higher attrition. And so we've really, really leaned into strong leadership and making sure, again, you utilize creativity, and assess the cultural needs of specific areas, and then really nurture that.
How has this played out in your ability to either recruit or retain employees?
Yeah, so it's been a little bit shocking, like in both directions, right? You think that most people, what they want is that autonomy and flexibility. We have some folks who want to come in 5 days a week. And they're like, well, do I have a dedicated office? Do I have that space? And we're like, oh, crap. I mean, we should probably figure that out, right? Because we're used to people office sharing, or kind of renting out some of our little, what we call like our little phone booth offices that are kind of just made for the day or a couple of days a week. And so it's definitely required us to pivot for folks who have wanted to be in the office 5 days a week. On the flip side, it has helped tremendously make sure that we can recruit the talent that we want. Like I said, there are a lot of people, especially this day and age, who really need the flexibility to keep up with what's going on in maybe their personal lives. I am a mom and I run a business, and I know for me that the flexibility I've had being the boss or the owner for the last 8 years has been huge in both my ability to commit to my work and grow a thriving business, as well as be able to commit to my family. And so it has really, really helped us. Like I said, I have really come to appreciate large, diverse applicant pools, right? We always want to be hiring for the best or the right culture fit. And we don't, I would hate to not be able to hire somebody because we couldn't find that middle of the road flexibility to make sure that people can do what's best for them personally and their family, while also being able to commit and be passionate about their work.
That's great. And that's actually all we have time for today, Erin. That went so fast. I thank you so much. It was great hearing about Ellie. I hope that our audience finds some of your advice really helpful in running their business. So thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Take care. Those were great insights from Erin today. I'd like to thank her again for joining today's Co-Strategy Studio. And we hope that we covered insightful ways for you to continue growing and shaping your hybrid work strategies. Additionally, I want to thank our sponsors one more time: Dell, FedEx, Iron Mountain, and Oracle NetSuite. And thank you all for your continued support of this series. For more information for the audience, you can check out Co at growwithco.com, or you can click on the link that we'll be putting in the chat feature. Thanks to all our chamber members who joined us today. For those of you who are interested in joining the chamber, please check out the link on the right-hand side of your screen. We hope that you will join us in October for our America's Top Small Business Summit in Washington, D.C. Stay tuned to your inbox to receive more information as we get closer this fall. Thanks, everyone, and see you soon.